version of Dark Potato.
I mean, you're right, Munchables. While Hunter has played Blackfeather in the past, I most likely will be going on Dark Potato, depending on the compositions though that will be coming out from Dynasty. They have multiple options to go with here, and I was gonna say, Reco Meza did a great job in the team fights. In the team fights period of the game on that Cruel. So giving Cruel again to him is going to allow Dynasty to again play aggressive. Hopefully they play aggressive better this time in the early game and not give up 4 kills, instead get advantages. And then later on in the team fights, Reco Meza can do the same thing he did last game and have a lot of success on Cruel.
Well, Grace and Catherine are going to be banned away, but this time it's in the second rotation of bans. It's the ones we usually see up in the first. But now Dynasty have to decide what direction they want to go around this Crawl pick, whether they want that to be the focus of their draft or whether they want that to be protecting a carry.
Right now they can either go for a carry to secure something that's really strong, or as I was just about to say, they can go for the Arden, which has been such a big pick for them in that captain role, to leave their carry as the last pick so they can counter whatever comes out from G2 Esports. And when you leave your carry as the last pick, it's such a great feeling for whoever is playing that role, because now you see the entire composition. You can see what exactly is going to be coming after you, and you can go like, okay, this is the hero that I can outplay with, or this is the hero that I can avoid all of the CC with, for example. Yeah. So it's a great feeling for PT Lam, and since he's the carry for this team, I actually expect this to work well for them. CP Idris and Lance come out.
Yeah, not a lot on the side of Dynasty to be able to dive onto that Idris just yet. So we'll see what they're going to round out their composition with. Obviously, the Krull can dive onto the backlines, but can also get kited out very easily by an Idris. This last pick is going to be incredibly important for Dynasty. We saw, the Idris, Celeste, those are 2 of his top picks. So now his hero pool is going to be kind of squeezed a bit here. Maybe they could go for something like another one of those melee laners just into this composition. It could work, because then everyone except for the Idris is going to be melee. So it's at least melee or short range. But I feel like they're going to want something that has a little bit more range, just to be able to play a similar style to what they did in game number 1.
If they go to what they have played in the past, it's going to be either a Vox or a Kestrel. The only problem with that is that it's going to be a double weapon power composition with Cruel. Although that works fairly well, it's not the best. Kestrel, however, is actually a great matchup against CP Idris because she matches her range and she has a lot of crit damage, and Idris generally is very squishy because they go every Idris CP goes a lot of defense, or a lot of offense, sorry, until they finish their offensive items, then they start getting defense. So the Kestrel does come out, like I said, and is going to end up being a composition where they can play really aggressive, siege turrets, especially once Cruel gets level 6 to try and get a kill with a gank, and then snowball the game that way.
All right, we'll see if that's going to be how this one pans out. What are you expecting to see here, Bacon?
Yeah, I'm expecting the same thing. A heavy aggression in the lane. Try and choke out this Idris. Prevent him from getting his items as long as you possibly can. And in the meantime, this Kestrel is going to be able to just put so much pressure onto the turrets and onto these objectives. This should be a way for Dynasty to just completely make that Idris a non-factor until it's too late.
All right, we'll see if they are going to be able to do that. Obviously, this Idris pick going to be a huge focus in this series. The laners have been a huge focus in this series. How do they protect this Idris to make sure that he can get to the late game?
I mean, they're just going to have to make sure that Dynasty doesn't get ahead from sieging the turrets. And honestly, they don't have a great comp for that because Blackfeather doesn't have too much fighting potential unless Lance is going to be able to land great roots when they fight on lane.
All right, we'll see if Lance is going to be able to get that CC down. It's time to jump into game number 2. Hashtag Vainglory8 is where you can get us on Twitter. It's time to see if G2 can come back in the series or if Dynasty are looking at a 2-0.
G2 looking to come back like Munchables stated, but Dynasty upsetting the norm here in Europe, really wanting to fight for a world spot themselves. I believe Araki Zoro said, Xscoundrel, that if they make it to the finals this week, they will throw themselves up into 3rd position. That's where they want to be if they want to start climbing the ladder to get into 1st.
Yeah, and Dynasty are one of those teams that are floating around in terms of performances have been amazing, performances have been lackluster, but right now they're taking it to one of the best teams in Europe. They've already got a 1-0 advantage. They're going to go double weapon power here, though, Dowsy. So we're going to see a PT Lam running a very aggressive weapon power Kestrel, limited defensive itemization, and then Reco Meza, who's already shown that he isn't sort of going to go shy away from something like a Bonesaw. So we might actually see a bit of prioritization in sort of armor shredding coming out of the Dynasty Gaming roster here. Although you don't necessarily need it with Power Kestrel. Like you said, the East Asian build of Weapon Power Kestrel these days pretty much blanketly includes a Bone Saw in the field just to be a bit more versatile. So they might likely see multiple forms of weapon armor shred coming out from this double weapon power composition from Dynasty.
Yeah, and if it's not a bone saw, it's going to be a tension bow, which is heavily prioritized in Europe regardless, just for the extra burst damage that your auto attacks can output when you pair it with a big crit as well. G2 looking to set up on something onto PT Lamb, who doesn't have active camo yet, has gone for a double Glimmer Shot start on his Kestrel. Instead, we do see Rikumeza securing the Elder Treant and now moving into Dark Potato's jungle. Hundor once more will roam down immediately. Dynasty are now going to just walk away from this. B2, Shire, Impale don't actually have much chase potential on this CP Idris weapon power Black Feather to begin with. So Dynasty fairly comfortable to do this, just move on in. The Glaive was kind of the reason that they were able to lock up a Cruel for so long, was they had double CC, but not so much anymore. And I think Dynasty will be a little bit more successful in their invades going forward, Xscoundrel.
Yeah, you also don't want to match a Cruel into Weapon Power Blackfeather early on, especially before Weapon Power Blackfeather gets his sustain behind him, because it's just a matchup in terms of dueling a melee to melee. You're never going to win as the Weapon Power Blackfeather, so you just have to be very careful about approaching a Cruel in the jungle. You'll see Rikumeza searching for opportunities here. Dark Potato has started up this central Treant, but an early rotation coming out.
This time it looks like Dynasty may be rotating for a fight. PT Lamb's coming, but Rikumeza's taking a lot of damage. Hundor the main focus. Impale will root him. He needs to smite something for some health. He's already used that smite, so he doesn't have the ability. Instead, pops a flask and just about escapes due to the help of a Vanguard. Now Dynasty looking to take this tree. Keanu Nicole wants to steal it, but I doubt he will. Impale not connecting. Keanu Nicole will go down. First blood goes over to Rikumeza. And it just seems a little bit ridiculous to challenge a Cruel at a smiting war when his Spectral Smite just does so much damage to the neutral camps of the game. Dynasty haven't finished their invade either. They're looking for more. Gonna get rooted if he's not careful, Rikumeza, so has to back up, and he just steals that one away fairly effectively, but now has given up his life. Not entirely sure if that was worthwhile. I guess that will be up to Rikumeza to decide.
Yeah, but the lane pushing of PT Lamb here means we're going to lose a couple of minions for Hundor, who is, again, falling behind PT Lamb. You know, this is something that we saw from last game, and it was something that Dynasty punished so well, was the fact that Hundor was so quick to rotate out of lane to help his team in sort of the early duels with Rikumeza, and that just allowed PT Lamb the freedom to farm and push on the Celeste. He is just doing the same thing on this Weapon Power Kestrel, just pushing the lane, getting that farm advantage, very happily sitting at a tidy gold barrier over Hundor himself. And again, it puts Hundor behind specifically, and one of the late game bailouts I think used to be the fact that Hundor was a monstrous late game mechanical carry, and by putting him behind in the early game because you're bringing him back down to defend against this new aggression that Keanu and Dark Potato have adopted, it does mean you are slightly sort of hamstringing Hundor in terms of his progression in the game.
I do like the way PT Lamb, very happy to just sit back in the lane and allow Hundor to push on into him. Hundor once more going the Shadow Glass. There's the Sorrow Blade finish for PT Lamb as well. Dark Potato will be going towards a Sorrow Blade, but he is sitting 700 gold away from it, so has to farm up. Rikumeza has the gold to convert his components into a Tension Bow when he decides to do so. This is a lot of aggression coming out of G2 to push the turret. The Glimmer Shots clear it fairly quickly, but a good amount of damage has been done by Hundor already. Something that Dynasty do have to respect is their sieging ability with the Idris.
Yeah, and he's got the Shatter Glass as well, like you said, so it's a big hit for him now. He's gone towards this sort of heavy damage output, and you can see even just one tick of it now doing about 230 damage. That's racking up to 450 to 460 on a return Chakram on both hits. That will start to tear through this sort of slightly nerfed first tier turret as well. Something that we often sort of mention is how in the most recent update, turret got nerfed in terms of HP, and that's a Bone Saw first item for Rick. I heard you going, ooh, I looked down and I saw. But Bone Saw first item for Rikumeza. Now, it's not awful by any stretch of the imagination. This is everything that Cruel wants. A bit of weapon power, a bit of attack speed, or a lot of attack speed in Bone Saw's case. but preemptively getting there before the armor comes out.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad shout. Rickomeza taking a lot of damage though, does get a fountain and a healing flask. Dark Potato will take damage in return. There's a one-shot coming through and Keanu Nakoa will get stunned as well as hit inside of it. Both fountains have been popped. Healing flask only available for Keanu Nakoa on the side of G2, which puts Dark Potato in a slightly compromising position. Does have that Rose offensive to dance on out if he wishes to, but currently Dynasty holding back as Mowgli will take a bit of burst, but he's okay. He has a healing flask and he pops it to stay nice and alive, and I love this move. Rickomeza immediately into the enemy jungle, once more putting the pressure on to Dark Potato, although has to be careful he doesn't lose his life here. Going to have to go deep into the jungle to escape it. I'm not sure he'll be able to, so instead he's going to just opt in for stealing camps away. Crystal Sentry does get involved. Rickomeza going to lose his life, but Hundor not able to protect the turret against Dynasty. So all in all, Dynasty able to net more gold in the pocket than they lost. Unless G2 are able to convert this into another turret or a gold miner, it's a fairly good win. However, they are going to go for the gold mine.
Gold miner, I think, is the ideal scenario for them if they can take it quickly before Dynasty can mount and defense. Very healthy PT Lamb with a bit of energy to boot means he's going to be able to defend this gold miner. Don't think Rickomeza will get there in time. They're going to maybe look for a steal. Don't get it.
Not quite able to steal it away. That was close. The gauntlet going down from Mowgli. Not able to catch anyone. I think it was used defensively more than anything to make sure that PT Lamb didn't get re-engaged upon. So gold does swing back forth towards G2 here. Hundor will be allowed to continue scaling up. He's significantly behind on CS. 20 CS, very uncharacteristic once more. And like you mentioned, it is this aggression that Keanu Nakoa and Dark Potato are forcing that's kind of putting Hundor behind in the lane.
I think when you put Honda on something that is so gold dependent as a CP Idris, you can't expect him to want to rotate every time you take an awkward engage in the early game versus your opposition. And
oh wow, look at that
late on the reflex block.
Was late, you're right. Fountain is there and available. Hundor also has his flask. How bad does Dynasty want this fight? Using the gauntlet early on means that they can't re-stun anyone here, but Rickomeza will dive in. Flask going to be used. Fountain as well. Shimmer Strike to reposition. Another Fountain and Hundor so low. Rickomeza can't quite find a burst onto him. A one-shot won't connect. Dynasty, so much threat, but unfortunately not enough to find a kill.
The ideal scenario for Dynasty is they go for another invade to the jungle of G2, is allowing Rickomeza to build a couple of those Bonesaw stacks onto a target like Hundor, and then allow PT Lamb to rain down with glimmer shots if he can weave them in. Basic attacks maybe, because those crits are going to hit that much harder by shredding the armor of your target. The actual theory of this combination works so nicely between the two of them. It's just finding those executing team fights that is going to be the main drawback for Dynasty. You very specifically have to Rickomeza onto the target and have a position where PT Lamb's able to get a clear shot onto them as well to actually find that single target burst. Whereas Hundor can play a bit more liberally on this CP Idris, doesn't need to be specifically focusing anybody, especially when that Broken Myth gets finished off, which by the way is a way away as the gauntlet comes down.
It does. It's the turret falling nonetheless. Mowgli not able to stun anyone. Here comes a Hell's Heart onto Keanu Nakoa, focusing down this Lance, and he will just drop before Fountains procced from him. Felt the healing flask would be enough to keep him alive. It wasn't. Dynasty playing a very interesting game here at Scoundrel because of the amount of stuns available to their composition. They forced Hundor to purchase a reflex block. Double weapon power, and he's not going to be able to build armor unless he decides to sacrifice that 4 CP item that we typically see CP Idrises want to go down.
Well, a Shatterglass Alternating Current and Broken Myth build means that you're probably going to have the damage to suffice a 3-item CP Idris build. It just loses a little bit of versatility by having that Eve of Harvest in check. Something else that this Bonesaw Thirst often provides as well, Dalsy, is the fact that even if you're hitting a frontline target as Rickomeza, so even if you have to retract yourself to hitting Dark Potato or Keanu Nakoa with that armor that they have got in tow, it does mean that PT Lamb is going to be able to shoot either of them. He's going to be able to fire those arrows at a frontline target, and because their armor is getting shredded, they are going to be melting as much like butter that Hundor is made of. So it's It's actually got a bit of a nice combination going on here for Dynasty Gaming, and I really like it because PT Lam, you saw how much damage he ended up doing to Lance Keanu, who's actually got the Atlas Pauldrons finished already, which is obviously a great counter to Cruel specifically. But you saw that the crits coming from PT Lam onto Keanu were pretty significant.
Yeah, and he hasn't gone down any armor shred himself, just working with the crit build that we see so typically. Oh gosh, 600, a one-shot comes through, a block onto the Hell's Heart. Rickameza will fall back just for now, but so much damage coming out of PT Lam onto every member of G2. It's scary, X-Scoundrel. Dynasty setting only 1,000 gold in the lead. It's not like items are significantly in their favor, it's just this kind of combination of Cruel and Kestrel doing so much work. Great stun onto Hundor. He is going to get pulled back in and he is going to fall once more. Dynasty taking down this Idris in typical fashion, and right now it's not looking good for Hundor.
It was like he just rolled back into the gauntlet wall there, Dalsy. Not sure that was ideally what he was aiming for. Also, let's note that PT Lam has gone for the double turrets monocle, no attack speed yet. Now, we often talk about how that limits the versatility of a Kestrel build by not building the attack speed, but when you have a Cruel with a bone sword, and obviously Cruel and then Mowgli being able to take that front line, draw a lot of attention towards them, I do really like the fact that he's prioritized that, because this means the Glimmer shots will hit harder, they will chunk harder, they'll pair through that front line who are having their armor shredded by Rickameza. It's a very sensible and good use of the build path, because often you'll see that some Kestrels, especially when they feel that necessary, they'll go towards early Tornado Trigger as the second item. But this time round, PT Lam stuck to his guns, went to the double turrets monocle, and you see how much work it's actually getting done to the front line of that G2 composition. He's picked up a Blazing Salvo here now, Dalsy. The question is whether that goes to a Bone Saw in itself.
Have to find out. Maybe a Tornado Trigger if they feel like Rickameza's doing the work. Oh dear, Keanu Koa completely deleted. Hundor not able to secure that tree, and it is taken away by Rickameza, and now this Crystal Sentry surely will fall. Dynasty haven't really put as much priority onto it as yet in this game. That would be the first life removed, but G2 really can't do anything about it. They have to just allow Dynasty to play their game at this point, as Hundor, despite having the broken myth, doesn't have a frontline who can withstand PT Lam's damage.
Yeah, I think one of the, you saw there, Keanu now going towards a light armor again, realizes that with that Bone Saw he's getting chunked out just as quickly as Hundor would, and I think that last small engage there where Keanu went down was a perfect visualization of this combination between that Bone Saw and the Weapon Power Kestrel, and how hard that hits, even against the tankier targets. I mean, Lance has got one of the highest base healths in the game, for God's sake, and he just got absolutely destroyed in that situation. Mowgli now starting to take a bit of damage. Broken Myth has been completed by Hundor, by the way, Dalsy, and a light armor, so it might just be a 3-item CP Idris build. There we go.
Oh wow, that's easy damage onto Keanu Nakoa. Second gauntlet, where can Hundor go? But nowhere, unfortunately. Dark Potato's trying to dance around, but it's a triple kill for PT Lam. The Tornado Trigger, he doesn't need the shred. Like you mentioned before, Scoundrel, the Bone Saw and Rickameza's doing all the work for him, and Dynasty are just destroying these team fights.
Oh, and you know the beauty of this composition as well, Dalsy. The first target that Rickameza locks on, because of the Bone Saw and the Shiver Steel, it doesn't even matter who that target is. That's why he just used the Cruel ultimate there. Because right now, you could literally hit any single member. Maybe Dark Potato is less attractive because of the Rose Offensive, but any single member of G2, and because of this combination now that Rickameza has set up with PT Lam, all of them just get melted. Every single member of G2 is going to get melted in an instant, and it's just beauty because it makes the composition so simple to pull off. There's no fancy tricks about it. It just hit who's in front of you, and the great thing about compositions like that is sometimes the ease of composition to pull off gives you a better win condition, and that's what Dynasty you're seeing here from these guys.
Yeah, starting up the Kraken here. D2 very swift to come in and make sure it doesn't easily go over to them. In fact, they're continuing the Kraken, but they have to be careful. Rickameza has come back into position. PT Lam is there as well, and the Kraken dances around as Dynasty keep it alive at this half health. They want to start another team fight. Mowgli 5 seconds away from a gauntlet as well. It won't be echoed, because the Echo hasn't quite hit its cooldown, but maybe it's enough to start up a team fight. Hell's Heart blocked up, great Giffian War, but he gets stunned in the gauntlet. And oh dear, Dark Potato's already dead. Hundle to escape with the reflex block. Now they just turn towards. They don't. Hundle went back in, and it's just a triple kill for PT Lamb once more. I thought Hundle was going to escape, but yes, either way.
Towards death right there.
When it happens like that, Scoundrel, PT Lamb is just looking like a monster. Dynasty going to easily take down a choke point turret. The Kraken is being completed by Rikameza. It's going to be able to walk straight into the basin. Dynasty will just look to finish the game off that.
I mean, Dynasty have played like a team possessed in this series. They have looked incredible. They brought out something slightly new and interesting, different builds as well. And again, this combination is just so beautiful to behold, because the funny thing about a Cruel is that when you have a Cruel and he's ahead or he's doing well, or even if he's just even, he demands some sort of attention. And often because Cruel is the one that's leading the charge right up in the enemy team's face, he demands the initial focus. So if Rikameza is demanding the initial focus from G2 and getting those... Wait, I'm going to sneeze.
Oh, Scoundrel sneezed. Watch out, guys.
I'm good.
Oh, it's a stun on to Hundle as well. And oh dear, it's Dark Potato dead. No, it's Kiana Nakoa, but it doesn't really matter because everyone on G2's dead. Only Dark Potato remaining, and a one-shot will find the kill. It's a nightmarish PT Lamb. Kestro, it's Dynasty taking down the spring champions of G2. They're going to be joining SK in the finals, Scoundrel.
Wow, what a performance from Dynasty. Incredibly dominant. And I just love the way that they ended up playing this game. It's very unique. Not often do you see kind of builds coming out. Obviously, PT Lamb following something pretty standard, but Rikameza with his build specifically, you know, very, very unique Bonesaw first. I really love the prioritization on Armor Shred just to give him and PT Lamb essentially a free shooting ground of the G2 competition. Doesn't matter if it's Hundor, doesn't matter if it's Keanu, doesn't matter if it's Dark Potato. They're all the same when they have those Bonesaw stacks on top of them. I think the Dynasty definitely deserved a team going through, and